What's up, guys?
No.
Welcome. No?
So cooked.
Welcome to Trims and Talk.
What's going on?
All the credits.
I just wanna talk with my brothers, is that too much to ask? Might as well look sharp, cause I'm doing it too. Trims and talk. Trims and talk. Trims and talk. I wanna know.
The pleasures of being a mom.
I know. Well, she'll be delighted to have a day off, to be honest. The other day she had a cold and I said, "You're not staying home." She's like, "I wish I could be sick so I could stay home." I was like, "Well, you got your wish."
Duvet day is what she wanted.
Who does she?
Day the other day.
But the truth is, who does she take after though?
You know, sometimes it's nice to be at home, isn't it? It's nice to be cozy.
Well, it's great having you here, Steph. I think it's the third time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is the
usually
third
this time is a charm.
Yeah. All three times a charm.
Pull this forward slightly.
Are we recording now?
You know me.
Yeah, he's got us rolling.
Yeah.
So, welcome, Steph. Third time. It's absolutely brilliant to have you. And Kate, it's the first time, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so Trims and Talks. Everyone says to us, "Oh, whatever." I'm saying it's just a conversation, because Steph can tell you that's all we do. We just like to chat, basically. And I was talking to you before, Kate, downstairs about some possible areas for discussion, and one of them was actually about motherhood and work. And it's quite apt, because even before we could start, you got that phone call. So, I mean, for you working, because do you work full time?
I work full time.
You work full time?
Yeah.
So how have you, over the year, have you always worked throughout the time of your children, or since you've had the children?
I started working when my youngest was 2, but before that I was doing the PhD. So, and I think I had a bit of a period where I was only doing bits and bobs, but I've been working pretty much full time since my youngest was 2. But I don't know about you, Steph, but the flexibility allowed by academia is hugely helpful. It's not like a place where you have to be from 9 till 5 every day. You can kind of make your own decisions about how you organise your day, and that helps.
Yes, I'd agree with that. The flexibility is good. I think so. My youngest is 3, so I'm part-time. 3 kids and the youngest is 3. So part-time really works in terms of being able to juggle what everybody needs at any given time. Yeah.
So do you feel as if you had a different type of profession, career, it might have affected you differently then?
Yeah, definitely for me. But then I don't think I'd have had a different type of career. There's many reasons that I can't be in a place from 9 to 5.
Every week I'm like, should I jump ship?
Yeah, you were saying that the last time we spoke, that actually that you had that thought about maybe sort of university life wasn't for you as such.
But then after the last time we spoke, I had a massive game changer. So my dad got prostate cancer. And he's like one of the major support systems for our family. He looks after the kids a lot. He's there for like emotional support, logistical support, for everything. So I was literally about to hand in my notice, and I was like, I need the flexibility, because that way I could go flexi time at the university and then be there for every school pickup and for my dad's medical appointments. So then I was like,
your dad came up from London, didn't he?
That's right. He moved up at retirement to support
so
us.
he's been a big support for you.
And he's back in business now. He's back, you know. And it was funny, because after about a month, he was like, "I'm ready to come back." I'm like, "You're not ready to come back." That Remy, if he decides to, you're not, you're not ready. So he was like, taking my grandkids away from me. And it was like a whole thing.
My terrible daughter.
Trying to protect me from a toddler.
How is your dad now?
Yeah, he's great. He's really good. He's probably about 80% there, but he's back helping us out, which is the most important thing for me.
Because I know Donald. I mean, like, I know you're currently working with what do you call it, prostate cancer.
Well, Kate's my boss.
Don't put it down.
Kate, I've got old-fashioned terms.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, because for me, that basically wouldn't be something that, I mean, I do think about it, but it's like, I haven't sat down with somebody who has told me, like, you know, like, after the operation, how long it takes to kind of recoup or, you know, to actually go back to, you know, kind of helping out, because, you know.
But I realised helping out, you know, as Kate sort of alluded to, was part of him getting better, and feeling better. He needed to be, he needs to be needed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a purpose, isn't it?
It is, and that Remy, the 3-year-old, was like, other than you, Grandpa's my best friend.
Oh,
Oh no. So I'm not, I was like, I can't keep them separated any longer.
No, but that's it. I think for some of us who were raised by our grandparents, we do understand the importance of having a grandparent around.
I said to Kate downstairs about being a grandparent, and I was doing a little bit of sort of like reflecting on life, and I think I did say that actually. I found the period of my life which I enjoyed the most was of raising children, and as a grandparent, you can feel a bit sort of like
Sidelines?
yeah, on the periphery. So I totally empathise with your dad there, which is, you know, wanting to be, you know, part of it as much as possible.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And also, I mean, I always find out that that generation that is retired seem to be busier now that they've retired than when they were still working. You know, I saw my in-laws literally, it's like, if you look at their scheduling, you're like, what are you guys doing? It's like sometimes it's like the whole idea of just sitting and watching TV is not a thing.
No, it's probably better for health in the long run to keep busy.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, well, I think because you know, we've had this conversation a lot with different people on the podcast, you know, principally older guys, and there's been a sort of like conversation about doing olderhood. You know, how do you do it? And one of the ideas has really been about you needing some purpose in life. And when you're working and you've got children, you know, there is a purpose. You know, even if you're not sitting back and doing a sort of big philosophical sort of like angst with yourself, there is a purpose. You've got to get up in the morning, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to get the food for the children, you've got to get them to so and so, you've got all these timetables working out. And then actually it can be a period later on where actually it's not as clear cut as that. But we don't want you to worry too much on that. That's for us older ones.
Well, that's the thing, because that's exactly what I was thinking of. I'm like,
what they're talking.
Well, I wonder, you know, because these ladies are like super young compared to us.
I'll take it. I'll accept.
It is something I think about, because I think, you know, I enjoy being busy, and I know that I will need to stay busy. But I also think there are so many things now that I don't do because I'm working and I'm a mum, that I just feel like I could easily fill a day. You know, I don't sort of have any fears about that.
Cause I know your job is like, cause you're like in charge of stuff.
I know, I'm not sure who decided that was a good idea.
Is that the title, in charge of
Yeah,
stuff?
she's in charge of stuff. No, that's the thing. It's like, and she's everywhere. It's like every time you see Kate everywhere, and she's in charge of stuff, really. That, to me, the in charge part makes it, it's like, because it's not just like a standard like 9 till 5.
No.
I'm sure there's a lot of kind of planning, pre-planning, getting ready of this and what have you. How do you balance that, though?
The sort of responsibility.
Yeah, the responsibility of work, and also having to go home and have more responsibility as a mom.
I think also the full-time aspect as well. Like I've done full-time for short periods, and I've been like, not for me. You know, I don't know how you balance the home and full-time work. Like,
I think there's a few things. So a husband that's flexible helps. So for example, especially when we didn't really want to put our kids in nursery full time, so he did a lot of childcare when the kids were young, and actually that was really helpful, because now they look to him as much as they look to me, and I think often that doesn't happen. So that was something that had its benefits. But I have had times, Lagani, where I've realised that my head is so full of work that I'm not very good at home, and I always try and kind of step back when that happens. It's not the time's fine, the kids are at school, so time-wise there's no issues really. I come home, they come home from school, but it's like if my head's still in work mode, then I'm not a very nice parent.
Do you find, because both of you are academics, and the academics I've known often, that's how they view themselves, as academics, and I've always been quite surprised with academics. They can be quite elastic with work. They'll actually, they're so embodied in them, what they do, that actually they sometimes don't seem to have a cut-off in terms of, in other jobs, you go to work, you might do long hours, get there for 8 o'clock, leave at 6 o'clock, but sometimes academics can just be doing it all the time.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the academic though, because definitely before kids, that was definitely me and I'd be doing it all. But now I compartmentalise quite firmly, like this is when I'm with the kids, this is when... Some people do have that brain where they can be sort of typing away with the kids around, but that's never been the way I work.
Does it mean though still that you would be still working at home in the evening, maybe at weekends?
Sometimes, I mean, Kate and I speak about this sometimes. I try not to work on the weekends. If there's like a deadline that is immovable and something needs to get done or it's not going to get submitted, I will do it, but I try not to.
And I think the worst thing for me is that kind of semi-working where actually you're not meaning to, but you're kind of working while you're doing everything else. I think I'd prefer to think, okay, actually I need to do 3 hours on Sunday and sit down and do it rather than sort of, try and do two
not
things
completely
at once.
relaxing, not completely working.
Yeah. And I think that is academia. You don't have this kind of steady workload. It can go like in peaks and troughs. So I think there can be time when you think, okay, I'll do that now, and another time maybe you'll leave work early or whatever.
Because you said at the beginning of our conversation that I think you alluded to the idea that you could only ever really see yourself in university academic work life. What's sort of like behind that as such?
I don't know. I feel like it's kind of my comfort zone. Like, I know you said you were a bit surprised, and I can kind of see why in some ways, but I think my parents always say you just went to university and never left, which is kind of what happened. Yeah. There's libraries, there's
the things you like. I like reading.
Like literally that's and there's like-minded people and there's interesting conversations. I just think, what more do you want really in life?
Wow.
And, but I think doing the role I do makes it something I see myself doing long term, and I think that's the other bit, that's that community connection, and it makes it feel worthwhile. So
And yet that you've had your doubts, haven't you?
Yeah.
I mean, and what's been the sort of like friction points to make you have those doubts?
I think to take a very practical example, I was trying to work with some researchers from down in UCL to set up a really nice, exciting project with a Daira up here, and it was going to be beautiful. And we're like, oh, people can record voice notes, WhatsApp voice notes on their phones, and it's going to be so creative, and everyone was really excited about this. Then it hit university ethics, and they were like, impossible, never, data security, data protection, what if this, what if that? And I was like, what? Just let this thing be beautiful and be birthed into life, So I think sometimes the creative and the anarchist in me, I love a bit of chaos, and universities don't, So I think sometimes there's that, and also, whether the work you're doing with the community, whether it's extractive, there does come a point where you have to kind of find that middle ground of, okay, the university or the funder wants this, but actually what would be best for the community is something different. And so trying to balance that up can be quite
I think I had you in mind when I came up with that sort of phrase around institutional conformity, culture and authenticity. Because clearly institutions, they have a culture. Often there is a conformity. As wide as it might be or not, it's still there. Because when we were in a meeting last week, I think you were you reminded us very clearly there were things we had to do, and we had to be mindful of the university. It had to be done like this. If we didn't do this, we'd get ourselves in trouble. And that can be quite hard sometimes when you're working with, as you say, Kate, communities. And wanting to work with them in a true way. And yet actually you've got this big beast of an institution which says you do it like this, our way.
And I think that's exactly the kind of nature of the role you're in as a community research link worker, that you'll see both sides of that. Because what I would say to you and David, I wouldn't say necessarily to community members. Does that you're almost like in that middle point where you're looking and seeing both sides and how there can be a clash, and we have to try and like resolve that and navigate it, I think.
Because you're community link work as well, aren't you?
No. Yeah, it's true. But it's like just listening to you, I'm just thinking it's like there's this sense of, I think sometimes it's like trying to, there's an element of trying to serve two masters.
Absolutely.
In a way, which can be slightly difficult because you'll never really strike a fine balance. You always find that one demands more than the other. And it's usually, and in this case, I think, entities like the universities will get their share, because after all, they're funding these things, you know what I'm saying? So the community, to a certain extent, I think the community has always been involved at a back foot in a way. Like we have spoken about this. We have I remember when we were designing the that framework with the Chooks and those guys,
the toolkit thing.
Yeah, the toolkit. Yeah. And I think that as a starting point is a great idea, but the practicality of that means then that the research entities, those who bring us research, then have to come in fully schooled in the idea of the toolkit. You see what I'm saying? But it's unfortunate that that we still have to have that conversation, because that information either wasn't passed through to the stakeholders, the others, either the university types or the NHS type or whoever is doing the research, because I don't think the toolkit is available to everybody. It's only in this case it's available to the university. I will assume.
No, it's on a public website,
is
so
it?
anyone can use
But that's the thing. It's like, I know, without getting into particulars, we had a conversation with somebody pertaining to some research we are currently doing, and to the point that we had to actually even go back to the basic, because they came with their own expectations and stuff, and we had to say, something, you will not get anyone at a community level agreeing to this. You know what I'm saying? Because even just the expectations were so...
Don't you think that? I mean, because both yourselves have done a lot of work with the communities, haven't you? Which is, it is a very delicate sort of process, one which has to be done with a real sense of empathy and understanding, and maybe even a recognition that you don't know. And actually, I want to build a relationship which is going to be a trustful relationship, one with respect as well. I mean, I think you said, Kate, this has been something which has been quite something for you to sort of like, you've seen, things have grown for you in your understanding of this role.
Yeah. I don't know quite what the question was.
Well, the question was, I think I know my question was more around this idea of how to build relationships with communities when you want communities to work with universities on research, because as you say, Steph, they can be very extractive. That is a viewpoint which many communities, many members of communities actually believe. You come to us for stuff, you take things from us and you go away. We don't respect you. You're just another part of the great big apparatus of the state, etc. There, you just take.
And I think it's kind of about how you position yourself. And actually, this is how I position myself in my own understanding as well. But I don't think I see myself as part of the university structure, and I think a lot of people don't. You're kind of here, and it enables you to do your work. But the structures are something else, and that's just something we have to deal with. So I suppose that's maybe how I position myself when I work with communities, is like, this is what we want to do, this is what's stopping us from doing exactly what we want to do, and kind of this is how we can try and navigate it. I don't think I connect myself with these kind of structures. And you can have a role in explaining, like the ethical process is there for a good reason, to protect people, so you can kind of explain why that's there. I don't know about you, Steph, do you Do you feel the same?
I think it's an interesting one, and I think there is a sweet spot in your, I think I mentioned this last time, in your career where we're sort of senior but not senior enough that we need to be a part of the building,
exactly.
you know,
You're
part of
not the Vice Chancellor.
No, exactly. And I think I at least, and I'm sure you two are quite selective about which leadership opportunities you take part in, because you don't want to become part of the problem. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So,
And I think you're right. There is
it's
a sweet spot where you can have a degree of independence and do the research that interests you, but you're not so senior that you're kind of
that you need to be the person saying, you know, we're going to
Doing all
fire
the-
all these people and we're going to, you know, make those, bring the hammer down on this, you're going to make cuts for this type of work. We're not going to hire community venues anymore because we want to keep all the money within the university, for example.
Because for me, it's like I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, I know like from, we have Storm and we have the men's group on the other side, but I'm just thinking like at the university level, what is the, I won't say like social outlet, because that's not the right term, but like, where is the gathering of, because I assume, you know, like this is a place of learning, you know, like all the educators will be like either at that staff room, you know, kind of talking sharp about, you know, some new ideology and stuff. Do you ever get to sort of rub shoulders with other, you know, kind of other educators in this space, just to be, because you are in a space of learning, to, you know, to conspire, for the lack of a better word, you know, as educators? Yeah. Do you ever get an opportunity to sit with your, or is something that happens in my head?
No, I think it's something that happens informally.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you've got, you know who your comrades are within the university, and you sort of seek them out from time to time when you want to conspire, when you want to share ideas and kind of overcome certain challenges that might be put in place. You sort of, you will have to reach out and form your own little.
Yeah, I think that's true. Sometimes I go for walking meetings with people.
Oh, nice.
When I want to get when we want to get kind of out of the university space and just make things
think
a bit
differently.
think differently.
Yeah, because you can, I'd imagine, when you're even within the building, it can make you think like the building.
Yeah.
No, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like from a sort of like a wellness point of view, how do you deal with the entity, with the university entity? Because I assume every organization has a culture that sometimes is not conducive to those. Then everybody else who works within the space is just like a cog in a big machine. And many of us, we work within entities that way we don't really, it's a means. You know, because whether we like it or not, it is a means. We know we have to take care of business of those who look up to us to be supported. So how do you handle working within this entity? Is it left to you to create the culture that's conducive to your own health, or there is an effort from the university to make sure that you guys are taken care of and they're looked after? You know? Without naming.
Not today. So I think, not today and not on record. I think for me, like the kids are like a massive well-being outlet, you know, because I might go home and kind of take some of my annoyances about working within the institution home, and then Remy or Carla, one of them will come along with some comment, you know, like, normally what's for dinner, to be honest. It's not and then it takes you out.
Well, you've got to be there, haven't you? You've got.
You know that phrase, even activists have to eat. There's like, we need to, you know, we've got to keep this show on the road. Nobody's got time for you to be like navel-gazing and complaining about the institution. So I do think the kids are a major, not distraction, but they just sort of, you know, keep it all grounded. That it's not that serious.
Can I come in with something more positive though?
Please.
You love it.
there's many worse places to work.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think.
Fair enough.
So, and one big thing for me is like being a Muslim at work is
Yeah.
easy for me. There are prayer rooms everywhere, and not only
Yeah.
that, but I had a lovely kind of incident when we moved from one building to another. So when we were in Sandfox House at the Northern General, I had like my own little office just because of the way the building was laid out. So if I needed to pray, I would just lock the door and pray in it. And I think people knew this. So when we moved into a open plan office, I got a WhatsApp message one day from a corner of the room saying, "We've moved the furniture around and we've made you a little prayer corner in the office." You know, and that was my colleagues
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
work with. So for me, I feel like this is probably one of the best places for me in terms of
Yeah.
being a Muslim in a working environment.
Yeah, it's not like working in a factory or somewhere like
No.
that, where you
Yeah.
might have people who just don't understand, don't want to understand, don't even
Yeah.
want to accommodate in any way whatsoever
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because you also, I mean, I think both of you have said there's a certain level of autonomy within the university, which is good for you, because
Yes.
it allows you to be able to manage your sort of home life, and you've got space as well to develop some of the things you're interested in.
Absolutely.
And you're both experienced enough, it seems, to be able to know enough about the institution to navigate it in
Yeah.
particular
Yeah.
ways. So there's a lot of things which keep you there.
Yeah.
But
I
there's
would
also
say that,
exciting
yeah.
things as well, because I mean, it must be that, and I get this from both of you over the last couple of years, is that you're able to engage in work which you believe in.
Yes.
Yeah. And that comes across, because if you don't come across with that belief and passion, you're not going to go out to a group of people who might be sceptical about the organisation and convince them that actually they'd want to work with you.
Yes,
Good.
very true.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I mean, I've often, well, not argued, but I've often, one of the conversations that I've had with a lot of people either at the university level, because I remember the era gone, you know, when the university was, I think he had more to offer for the community, in the sense that there were a lot of buildings dotted about that were university, and you could just go in either for short courses and what have you, and which now seems like there's been a shift in terms of kind of accessing, you know, like some of those
Where's your
things.
£30,000?
I know. I know.
Where's your money?
So, but it's like I'm just trying to figure out whether, in terms of kind of that work with the community, which you both are involved in, has it seems like we are having to the university is having to reestablish that connection again, which it always had. Or is it like something that we assumed was just happening, you know? Because people still wonder, you know, what goes on in the university.
I'm not convinced that connection's ever really been there.
Mm.
And I mean, if you see, I could be very wrong, but if you, just the way the university's kind of laid out, like we're right next to whole communities of people who don't feel they can get into our buildings even, you know, and like people, academics will talk about community groups as being inaccessible, but they don't have swipe cards on the doors, do they? Do you know what I mean? And the university buildings do, and I don't know, I feel this is...
They're still quite awe-inspiring places. You always feel, I do, that I'm walking in and everyone here is brighter than me. That feeling
Yeah, I
is
still feel that.
that's never gone away.
I still have that feeling, yeah.
Everybody in here is these young people, they're so bright, and these older people, they're so bright, and I'm this little person with a limited brain.
What?
No, that's how you
a
feel.
feeling,
That's all.
yeah.
That's all. It's just a feeling. Just a feeling. Don't knock me down for it.
No, you
Is
know
it a
what?
feeling you have?
Yes.
Yeah,
What? You guys do?
It is.
yeah,
It is.
totally.
But I do think, you know, and I don't have the numbers to hand, but with the increased diversity of people going into higher education, they're letting more of us in and climb the ladder. And if we're doing our job right, we're bringing our people with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting. And that's a flip side to it. It is an exciting place as well. And I think always exciting and slightly awe-inspiring or challenging, they're often the flip side anyway.
Yeah.
Or they're not. Can I just ask you then, but you know you work with the community. what did the interest in the community come before your work in the community? I mean, in what sense, what propelled you to want to work?
I mean, like the chicken and the egg.
Yeah, the chicken and egg. What made you think, oh, this is the area of research, my work I want to go down? Because you both have gone down that road, haven't you?
I mean, I started off when I left university, after I'd done my master's, in third sector organisations, and very much that's where I felt my heart was. I think I was tempted into academia by a slightly higher salary. And a building that wasn't
Well, that makes sense.
Don't apologise.
I think I'd always had this kind of sense of guilt because I felt like maybe I should be in the third sector. And then with the deep end stuff, I realised that was going on in a department I was in, and I just started kind of hanging around until an opening came in. And as soon as I was in there and suddenly thought, oh, I can kind of be in two places at once, or at least use my position here to actually hopefully benefit the communities that I'd previously be interested in working with, then that felt very good.
Yeah. I think for a long time I kept my community work and the academic work separate. I think I had a fear of how it would work together. It's only quite recently that I've started trying to look at what the benefits are for either side of working together, or more the benefits for the community side, to be honest.
Because I was going to ask if you could both explain the areas. I mean, you're talking about deep end, and I know you got Clarity Plus. If you could explain for those who are either watching or listening what that is, and then you can kind of sort of put it into context. Because all they can see is like two ladies talking. They're like, "Why, professor or doctor?" Or what? That's the thing.
Can we talk about deep end first? Or?
Okay, yeah. So the deep end concept is based on the inverse care law, that the people most in need of the best quality health care are the least likely to get it.
Okay.
The Deep End Research Alliance is kind of trying to deal with the research aspect of that, in the underrepresentation of certain groups in research affects the evidence base, which widens health inequalities. So we try and work with communities from the very beginning, kind of at the intersection of deprivation and ethnicity, to ensure that research is representative.
That is a very nice.
It is very. I tell you, I understand it now. You've got the job.
So Clarity Plus, there are 17 community organisations working with racially minoritized communities across South Yorkshire and the Midlands, and they are partnered with 3 different universities across the UK, across the north. And what we basically want to do is look at community-led evaluation. So rather than it being, a funder or an academic institution saying, this is what good looks like, we want to know what communities think good looks like. What does success look like from their perspective? And the other side of that project is just building those links between the community organisations, because often they're working quite separately. Somebody could be doing something very similar. So we're just trying to hook up, some of these more established organisations with some of the newer ones, or some organisations that focus on, women's health, organisations focusing on men's, so all of that sort of stuff.
So is it all both very much focused on health?
Yes. Yeah. Health, well-being, social inequalities. Yeah.
I mean, but health, like you've just said, health is just so broad, isn't it?
Yeah.
It can be as broad as you want to define it, really, in terms of what impacts people's health.
Yeah.
So basically, the thinking between what we do comes from these 2 ladies, so to speak. Because without that kind of the school of thought from such entities as Clarity Plus and Deep End, then projects like things like Black Barbers or something, I mean, it may happen or could happen, but there has to be a thinking process behind it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there probably has to be sort of like developing a sort of like, culture as such, that actually this type of work is work which is needed, this is work which is valuable, and this is work which is benefiting people. I mean, so how do you, because you talked about community evaluation, and it seems to be there that actually how let's call it the sort of higher education might evaluate something in a community that could be quite different.
Yes.
I mean, what do you see as these differences then?
Well, what's really exciting is that we've just sent out a questionnaire to about 600 people, and we've got quite a few responses already, and it is asking people, what does good look like to you from the community perspective? And I was surprised because, you know, when we sent it out, we're like, nobody's going to respond, but people have gone in on this questionnaire, like paragraphs about, they think it's this, it's not that, it's this, you know? So when those results are ready, I think we're going to do something nice and creative to analyse it so that it's not just academics in a room analysing it, it's like a community thing. We all come together and have a nice day. Any excuse for a party, really, where we all come together and analyse / a party, you know?
And I definitely learnt from you on this matter, I think. So I feel like before I was aware of some of your ideas, I was very stuck in a kind of fairness kind of paradigm of like everyone needs to be reimbursed, everyone needs to be treated fairly, and then you came in with your investing in and your healing, and that makes perfect sense. You know, that it not only needs to be kind of balanced in the here and now, but actually that balance can go to maybe redressing some past imbalance. You know,
and even in the work which I've been involved with you, Kate, recently with the prostate cancer, that notion of healing and the recognition of past injustice and the way in which it links with current injustice is that, you know, healing needs to be apparent. People need to be given some space to do that. Otherwise they're not going to engage, because it's come up quite a bit, hasn't it, that feeling?
We had a very interesting, right when I was at the start of this work, and one of the first things we did was an online webinar with SACMA, and we had someone from the university, from the clinical trials unit, Katie Biggs, who came, and she went through some of the high profile kind of research scandals, and also then detailed how the laws had changed and why, you know, what that meant and why this couldn't happen again. And it was interesting because we had feedback from that, and some of the academics were saying you shouldn't have spoken about such sensitive issues publicly and upset people. But the feedback from the community was all, finally, someone's acknowledging it. You know, and that need to actually bring these things out into the open and talk about them, not just kind of brush them under the carpet and hope nobody notices. You know,
I went, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, Shirley organised a training session for us at SACMA, and it was about safe responses to trauma. And one of the things which I think I remember from the session was this notion of trauma, and, you know, it's not a case of not talking about it, it's a case about how one processes it, which is key. And what you just said there, which is those historical traumas, you know, when people don't acknowledge them, you know, there's an elephant in the room and no one's ever mentioning it. That feels like it. Not only is it unjust, it's insulting as well for people. That's my personal feeling about it. So I think it's right and proper that those things are raised and people are able, because people, you know, they're not going to. Because I think it's worse when you sort of omit things. We just won't talk about it.
Yeah, I think communication is key though, because I did some work on allyship. White allyship, and some people wanted to be allies, but they didn't know how to be. So it was like it was around the time of George Floyd's murder. And some black people were very upset at work because it hadn't been mentioned by senior leadership at all. And then they went to senior leadership and said, how could you, you know, you really dropped the ball on this one. And they said, we didn't know what to say. We didn't want to offend you. We didn't know what words to put it into. So I think sometimes having these open conversations is really important.
There's a podcast that was, especially which came at the back of that incident in the States, talking about, you know, kind of the having difficult conversations. I think one of the things that we found that, especially when we recorded the first episode of the podcast, going around to the barbershop and asking questions that men normally wouldn't even have thought, or they have thought of, but thought, that's rubbish. Like, when is the last time you cried? Like that. But then somebody made a point in that conversation. It says, you know, sometimes you feel like you have to be given permission.
Yes, that is a very good point.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
And I think, like to your point about the university not knowing what it is, because it's like one of those things where you are damned if you do or damned if you don't. So it's like the striking of the balance, which is like sort of like emblematic. It's more of like similar to the work that we do with the community. Is you go in there and think, can I say this? Can I be transparent about this? But in many cases, like, because remember the community is always, entities have worked behind a veil of shadowy veil. So now when you say to communities, we want you to partner with us and do this piece of work, I think, it's a noble cause, and you ladies are doing some great work. You know what I mean? And
I think I asked downstairs, I was asking, just picking up from your point there, Lungardi, which is, all four of us are working with communities, and the question for me is, what have we learnt about ourselves in that work? Because, whatever work you do, you're always learning about yourself. I was in education for 40 years, and I know it's a very well-worn sort of phrase, which is, I hope the children are learning from me, but I'm learning from them. So it's a similar sort of thing, isn't it, from the when we work with communities, that actually, yes, institutionally there is learning taking place, but there is also ourselves,
One thing that changed for me, I think, especially after conversations with people at SACMA, so my children are mixed race and they're growing up with that, and I didn't grow up with that. And so they used to come home from school and say, oh, this teacher's racist, that teacher's racist. And I'd say, oh, no, that, I didn't want them to kind of blame everything on that and have that as their... And then actually after some of the conversations I'd had with people I'd met through SACMA, I stopped saying that, because I thought actually they're experiencing something that I haven't experienced, and maybe I should just kind of let that be. I think it just brought it home to me, that they would be, having completely different experiences, and something that I couldn't really put myself in those shoes.
And also, it's like, I think I get where you are coming from, because also it's like sometimes it's like we think that, kind of empowering our children especially is, I don't know if you've done this, but I know every time my boys went out, I'll be anxious. I'll be anxious, because sometimes it's not them, because you have taught them to be respectful to the status quo. But then those entities don't respect them. They will come and do what they deem, what they've been trained to do. We are seeing this in Minneapolis.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That blatant disregard for the citizens of those spaces. Like, how do you strike that balance of teaching your children to do right and then expecting them to come home?
Yes, and I think, so I've got two older girls, and I've got Remy, the 3-year-old, and he's just massive. He's built like a tank. He walks through other toddlers. But, being a black boy with that body already, like, I can feel the fear of how do I parent this person to keep them safe from the world. Even, like, I take him to soft play most weeks, and I just see how the other parents see him. They don't see a
even
baby.
at that early age.
You see them kind of going like that.
I forgot to a second, and Muna
Abdi
used to be a psychologist at Sheffield Hallam. She did a podcast some years ago, and the very first episode she was talking about nursery infants, and how, very well-meaning, very kind, gentle teachers there deny that they would have any racism within that institution. And she was patently saying that's not the case. The way in which you view that child who is not, conforming to their norms, which could be the sort of like, the large mixed race black boy, brown boy, straight away that child is being treated differently, and they're picking up on that.
Yes.
And that can be picked up from 3, 4, and go all the way up into school in there. So actually, you then start getting these figures of young black kids, 9, 10, being excluded there,
the
getting in
adultification
the
of them,
adultification.
yeah.
They're not even getting any secondary school education, and that is the sort of school to prison pipeline and school to sort of breakdown pipeline, and all the things which we see and we worry about for our own children. So it is there, and you're parents, and you're always you worry. I mean, I did exactly the same for my boy. When he was 16 and he was doing his, we were talking downstairs, when he was 16, he discovered going out. And he'd be out and about all night practically. You just couldn't get him back in the house. He'd actually, he's 33 now, he'd deny it. He'd deny it. He denied it was ever like that. But when he was 16 to 18, he was out and about and, all sorts of places. I don't know where he was. But you're scared at that point.
Yeah.
So how do you parent? I mean, like as a parent of 2 biracial children, boys for that matter, how equipped were you? Like that. They will need the different skill set than I have been exposed to. How do you?
Kate's kids are older, so you've had more experience. I'm just starting this journey and completely
It's amazing
confused.
They learn those skills, isn't it? And the code switching is amazing. That they naturally actually know what they can say and do in one environment as opposed to another. So I find it quite interesting that they just develop those skills, and they're very kind of integral to their personality without having to kind of think about them too much.
That code switching then, I mean, that's quite I think what I'm hearing, it's quite an apparent code switching. But wasn't it something you did yourself?
I suppose everybody does.
Yes.
Everyone's always different.
Different audiences.
environments.
I do think girls, I don't know, it's a different. The two, I can only speak for mine, but the 2 older girls are definitely different. Like, think about nursery and school, it was never even a thought of, will they be okay? Like, just socially, I think girls they just get it. They know how to perform socially, whereas
boys is different.
Yeah, it is different. So we're thinking, do we defer him a year? From going into school, just so he's got an extra year to kind of run around, but he's already massive. Do you know what I mean? He's going to look like a teacher every time he goes into school.
What are you feeding him on the dumpling?
just like more every dinner time.
Eating you out of house and home.
But it is those sorts of things of, how practically, and like he's in nursery part-time rather than, the girl's kind of 4 days. I'm like, let me just keep him to 3 days so he's got time. We can go to the Peak District, soft play, all of that sort of stuff. So I do think I am probably parenting him a bit differently to what I did with the girls.
But that's the thing. It's like I remember my older one, who is now well balanced, kind of lazy, singer, songwriter, producer. It terrified me because anytime you took him to like any public space, we grew up in that generation. Donald probably attest to this. Until I find out how guys are, you two, or how old you are. With us, it's like this. You couldn't, if 2 grown people were talking, you couldn't interrupt. So we grew up with that. Now having our own, and my boy will get into everything, and I'll be fuming inside. I'm thinking,
Other parents thinking, hey,
like,
mind your child.
But remember, usually I always find that our embarrassment has nothing to do with anything except our embarrassment.
Yes.
Because we're thinking that the other person is judging us.
Hey, they're just thinking, bye, something, it's not my turn. That's all. In the end, that's what most parents are thinking. It's someone else's turn because it's coming my way.
But what is lovely actually is with Remy, seeing him, he's so articulate about his emotions.
Yes.
I am angry because I am sad because
I like
that. Which is gorgeous to hear
no,
from.
I like
because
that.
those phrases. Because I mean, like, when I was teaching, I mean, you got to 16, 18, 19-year-old children, young people, adults, a lot of their behaviour was due to those primary emotions.
That's it.
Angry, sad, but they could not locate where the anger and the sadness and the shame and all those other things were as such. And we have that as adults, don't we? You know, we sometimes struggle with it.
We're still struggling.
I struggle with it.
We still struggle with
Anger,
it.
I think I've read like it's a secondary emotion. So if you're angry,
It's for something.
actually there's something underneath that. And
Yes.
that might be fear, for
Yeah.
example.
Yes.
And I've analysed it. When I get angry at my children and then I try and figure out why I'm angry, it's fear. Like what they seem to be going this way and I don't feel like I can stop it and I'm worried about that and that it brings the anger. And I think it's the same for them, isn't it?
Yes,
When they
yes.
express
I think
anger.
it's always reflective, really, because it's the things we don't know either we lash out at, and then those we know we are sort of like easy back because we know how it's gonna end, you know. But the things that we are sort of uncomfortable with and stuff, either our default is to kind of go overboard in terms of your, you know, how you respond to it. And I find that is because many of us, we were parented by people who didn't have a clue.
Well, this is what, you know, this is the other side. So half the time I'm like, oh, how beautiful. He's like, I'm happy, Mummy, because I ate an avocado. And then, you
This
know,
is mummy yummy here.
and then I'm like, that's so beautiful. And then the other half of me, who was brought up by, you know,
you know
that
what I mean?
generation, I'm like, he just needs to get on with it. Just in school. We don't need to talk about everything all the time. It's like the constant fight of what's the right thing
Well,
to
isn't that
do?
the conflict we all have, don't we?
And I think having older children as well, like my kids will say things to me, and I think I would have never said that to my parents.
Yes.
Oh,
But
never.
then that's what we sacrifice for having more closeness and more openness.
Very
I think that
true,
they're not
very
scared of it,
true.
so they will say stuff. that
Very
we'd rather
true.
them
But
not
occasionally you
say.
do want them just to do it because you told them to.
Yeah.
I don't want to argue about
I
this one.
know.
It just is.
Because sometimes I worry that when our boys or when our children go over to work mainstream, wherever they're going to work will have its own rules that basically they will struggle with. We conformed.
Yes.
We conformed to a system we didn't understand. I mean, and we learned along the way, but it was always from a point of, okay, I'm going into uncharted territory. I have to make build a relationship with this entity. There's certain things I'm not gonna like. You see what I'm saying? But I'll have to kind of knuckle down and make something come out of that. Either it becomes it's about a bigger salary, you know, at the beginning, but then eventually you get to a point where you strike a balance of saying, you know, I like doing this thing because it does X, Y, Z.
Maybe, I mean, you're fortunate, and it's great when you find something which fits you. You know, and for so many of us are all looking for something. I was fortunate. I found something eventually which fitted me, and that was one part of my life which I could say, that's not bad. You know, it's. I always think that idea that when you can get work, family, and maybe other stuff there, if they could all align, which is not often, but if they could all align, but if you could get one of them all right, but if you had one of them really out of sync, it can disturb the others, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
So how do you guys, I mean, how do you make sure that you are firing on all cylinders? Mentally, how do you keep yourself, you know, because I always find that ladies are more, you know, kind of in tune. Because with us, I mean, we're floundering.
You make
I
he
just
has the
assume.
big statements.
No, I just assume. I assume that.
Longani, I'm all there.
I'm struggling, bro. I'm struggling, brother.
I do think now we have been doing it for a while, both mothering and working. That helps. Like you sort of get into a rhythm. I don't know about your kind. So I'm on I'm always on short-term contracts.
Oh, okay.
So you're sort of swinging from vine to vine and hoping there's something there for you to catch, in the next 6 months or a year. But even that, you sort of get into a rhythm and kind of make
you just
your
assume it's going to be
peace
okay,
with it.
don't you? 'Cause
Yeah,
it
yeah,
has been okay
yeah.
for the last few years.
Exactly.
I describe you as
Exactly.
slightly entrepreneurial.
It is,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
It is a bit
yeah.
like being self-employed, isn't it? Because
It
you're having
is.
to ensure that the next contract is there and
Yeah.
the next contract
Yeah.
is there. And
Yeah.
But I think mentally, I mean, I had to do this really, I think before the Christmas break, I was not in a good place mentally, purely because of work. And I was almost surprised I'd got that bad because of work, because it's not something that I keep in my heart very much in a way, but really I was not in a good place. And I just had to go and kind of try and recenter myself on holiday, and just read books and embroidered things and just kind
You're
of
not emailing people or
Yeah.
texting
No,
people
they're
about
really
work.
people-
That's a really interesting point. I think women, we can mask quite a lot, because I had no idea you were going through that. I thought you were still firing on all cylinders, as you say, and you were going
It's
through
funny,
something.
isn't it? Because
so sometimes
you're
we
doing
just-
it until you're suddenly not.
Yeah.
And you can be like one day having this amazing, conversation and looking like you're carrying
Yeah.
everything, and the next day just be like, well, I've dropped it all now.
I know,
You know, and
I
it's-
know. But you didn't drop it until you got to your holiday. You just sprinted to the line, to the finish line, and then. But that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea.
But then the sad thing is, I think at home it was more obvious, and I think that it's kind of sad, isn't it, that home is like a safer place, so it's where you are more likely to drop things first, whereas
Yeah.
actually perhaps home deserves the best of you.
But then isn't home the place where we are sharpened and the rough edges, kind of smoothed? So that's why we will feel safer to be.
Well, if you can't be your, I'm using that
Authentic
phrase,
self.
authentic self, yourself at home, where can you be? Because it takes quite a lot to go to work and to be at work and to be with people at work and to take on board the responsibilities of work as well. And it's a bit like, when you've got your 16-year-old child, 17, 18-year-old child there, and you're starting to get them prepared for work, and you want to say to them, work's hard. It's called, it's got a 4-letter word, this one is. And it's hard.
But I do think there's also something. I think last time I was on, I was talking about kind of good enough parenting
Yes.
and the burnt food, and
You're still doing burnt food.
I think I sometimes burn a project.
Scrape that
Or
toast.
just kind of slow retreat from things I don't want to do, and kind of prioritize. Okay, what needs to be done? What
Yes.
needs to be done really well?
Yeah.
And what can we actually let slide?
Yeah.
And that's the reality, I think. And I
yeah.
think because being in the primary care department, I work with a lot of medical students, and it's an interesting thing to see medical students go through, because they are by nature perfectionists. They have to be to get into medical school. They just have to have that personality. Then they start having to do clinics and having to do the academic stuff alongside it, and it's a hard realization that you can't do everything to perfection. And I just think that's
Yes.
life. You have to choose what, like you say, what can just be good enough and what needs to be perfect. So
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
operating on somebody, you need perfection.
Yeah.
If you're perhaps filling in some notes, maybe, there's room for
Yeah.
good enough. Or
Maybe that's why their handwriting's so bad.
Yes, exactly.
Focusing on the surge, on the on the operation.
So we always do this towards the end, which is, what do you do then to sort of like all that busyness you've got in your lives, all the responsibilities you've got? What's the me? What's the things the things you do which basically just make you, that's going to calm me down now?
Actually, could I just add like a slight caveat to that? Like, what has surprised you about your own self through what Donald was saying?
There's 2 questions.
Yeah, my first answer was actually I've got some very key people in my life who just keep me going. And they're all very different in what they offer me. One friend I called the other day crying, and she just she just laughed at me for what I was crying. And that was what I needed to snap me out of it. I was like, yeah, you're right.
Get your grip.
It's only Tuesday, do you know what I mean? And, you know, but whereas, you know, when I need something else, there's another person that I will go to and who will kind of calm me and give me a very logical kind of, almost like a chat GPT answer that I need to hear, a computer brain answer. And then others for care. And I've got all these kind of different people that just
So you've got a good
nurture
network
me.
of people.
Yes. And then the other day I was like, oh, really stressed. So lots of, you know, some people stress eat. I stress don't eat. And so my friend brought me like the biggest lasagna you've ever seen with like 5 Tupperware. She's like, chop it up, stick it in the freezer. And you're sort of like, oh, thank you so much. And and then in answer to your question, I think more recently it's been very much getting comfortable in my own company. And realizing that I can self-validate. I don't always need external people to kind of give me that centering. Yeah.
I like that.
I think for me, quite kind of similar to you, but I think it probably starts with faith as a very centering thing. So I think that almost helps me to prioritize and put things in an order, you know, so there's God at the centre, and then your priorities kind of go outward from that into family and work and friends, and I think refocusing on that, and so like we have 5 prayers a day, which I always do, but I don't always do with as much consciousness as I should do, but kind of trying to recenter on that, and the consciousness I think puts things back into the order that they belong in. I'm not sure quite about the surprise bit of it. I don't know about that.
I'm thinking about the surprise bit now.
No, because
But I'm going to answer my surprise. It's not normally answer these questions, but I'm with you on this on the company. I spend quite a bit of time on my own. And if you'd said to me 10 years ago, could I be on my own? I would have said no. But I have recognised that self-validation that I'm all right. I don't have to be brilliant. I'm all right. And I can sit with that there. So thank you for that question.
It's an interesting twist.
No. You know, because you know why I ask is because I spend a lot of the time in my head. You know, like I journal quite a bit and I write quite a bit. And that comes from that whole idea of self-reflection. And I was saying yesterday to Joanne at home, I was saying, you know, things will happen around us. You know, I mean, we can choose to respond or just look at them and say, this I can change, this I can change, that I cannot, so I'll ignore it. Or probably get somebody else to do it.
So what surprised you then?
The very fact that I think many of us, we don't listen to ourselves, and I'm starting to listen more. There are entities I trusted to guide my moral sort of like worldview. And I still do, at the tenet, like what you were saying, Kate, about God is at the center. But God is God by himself. That's one thing I actually understood, and I don't have to broker that relationship. You see what I'm saying? That kind of thing that sometimes some people will say, well, my rabbi or my pastor or my elder or whatever, and they make that person be the person in between them and actually them doing the thing. But the very fact that you can pray 5 times a day, to me, means then you got access to God, you know, whenever you need to. I don't need to go to anyone to actually make sure that that thing does happen. It's the same like, you know, when you go for a walk, sometimes you suddenly find yourself mulling over some thoughts and some ideas and you're building up. Me, I pick up this and then I'll start recording some stuff, then work on it afterwards and all that kind of stuff. That has actually brought that sense of comfort to say, you know what? I can go to people and say, I have this idea. How do we build on this? But from my own point of view, I don't need to wait for...
Learning to trust yourself.
Learning to trust myself a little bit more.
It
comes with age.
Trusting your
It really
judgment.
does come with age,
I think that's a great point. For us, a great point where we can end. But can I say to Steph and to Kate, thanks very much for being on the podcast there, and thank you as well for all of your support,
the support. I mean,
enthusiasm,
it's invaluable.
just general sort of like, I feel as if I've been entering an area of work or a focus of work which you've been very much instrumental of, the pair of you, in terms of,
True.
I never really thought about this area of work at all, you know. So SACMA and yourselves have been really primary sort of drivers for me to be thinking and to be working in this area. So thank you very much.
And
Absolutely,
I
that's
think
exactly
for me,
what we want to happen.
I think for me it's just being present to see that happen. Because sometimes I can pull out that thing of I spend a lot of time observing and being part, or just putting in my hand when it's needed, and that has been brilliant to see. When I see you, you know, giving talks at events, I have so much footage of you giving talks, and I remember even the first time I saw, I'm like, who's this little girl?
With the big mouth. All the opinions.
You suddenly just take over.
That's it. So for me, it's just being in that presence, in that space has been. It's been very uplifting, you know, because we know
It is.
the
Like,
work
you know,
being
for
done.
me, like finding Kate, or I can't remember how we found each other a couple of years ago. But you're talking about people to conspire with and to
Yeah.
kind of build these connections, and the way you work. I've just learned so much from you, you know, and from both of you as well, in the way that you use this space to create this amazing work, like week after week, which, you know, it's spreading, and people know about the work and they respect the work, and it's, you know, it's an amazing.
So now we're waiting to
piece of
see if
work.
one day the BBC will come across it and form the Lungani show.
He has been working.
What's this away on holiday?
It started off as
let me
it didn't have neither of us. It was just
come
basically
on.
Trims and Talk, and then it sort of became Lungani and Donald, and then it's Lungani and the friend, and now it's just Lungani.
That's it, so it'll just be
It's not true at all. Now it's like, because he's going away on holiday soon. And I'm mortified.
You take over.
I am. I'm already conspiring.
Trends.